Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect, Big King Sadiq, back at you one more again. All right, man, thank you all. Always continuing to help build the worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Please continue to like, share, subscribe. Click the notification button, right? Follow me on Twitter now. And let's continue to build this worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. All right. So this next subject is one that a lot of people have. It's centered around a question that a lot of people have posed, right? Both my highly melanated brethren, sister out there, and other folks, right, of other races, nationalities, creeds, or whatever, have even posed this question: if the highly melanated or quote-unquote black people were so high and mighty and had so many wonderful advanced sciences and technologies and things, how in the world did we ever become subjugated, right? How did we ever become slaves or second-class citizens even? Or how did we not be the quote-unquote elites on the planet in terms of stature and perhaps even governance, right? So that answer is actually not as difficult or complex as one might think, right? And it is, in my opinion, better understood by observing it from a different perspective, right? Likening it to the willingness. So let me back up a little bit. The short answer is we allowed it. What? You mean to tell me the years of suffering in chattel slavery over here, the worldwide subjugation and usurping of land and resources, all that has happened to highly melanated or quote-unquote black people around the world in the diaspora, we've just allowed that on a higher vibrational level or on a spiritual level? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. We've allowed that. So, folks, we get so caught up in linearity that it's difficult for us to understand our purpose for being here, our purpose for living, right? Think back to the Nas moment in the car with DMX, asking him, man, you know, what's this all about? This is just paper, you know, getting punny, you know, I got dough, you got dough, we all got dough. What's it really all about? And that was a good point, or at least it could have led into a deep discussion. but Buns, the character X was playing, went into what really, realistically, is how many of us tend to default our lives, right? We literally think, you know, there's nothing other to this life than the acquisition of material, right? Some form of material gain. And thus we're tied into linearity that way. But in reality, there's a lot more to it. That's just the facts, folks. I posted about how numerous research centers have, I don't want to say uncovered, but have facts of taste and measuring of what the human eye is able to perceive of light, what we consider to be visible light. And it is an incredibly small portion of the actual spectrum. So in other words, you know how small, folks, we're talking about under 5%, well under 5%. There's some studies that say less than 1% of what is actually there is what we actually see. So with your two eyes, I only believe in what I see with my eyes. Oh. Comparatively to what's there, right? Literally 5%, which actually. So I say that to say, folks, we need to realize there is actually a lot more to reality than what we experience on a material or physical level. And there's a lot more to you than just your physical self, right? That voice in your head, you know, KRS-One alluded to this on one of the videos I saw him speaking on. You know, that voice in your head is you. That's your higher self. That's not, you know, or rather that's your consciousness, right? That's not little speakers that you have on the inside of your skull, right? That's you, not your physical body, which is part of the totality of your being, right? But it's certainly not the totality of you. You are much greater than that. And in knowing that, we have to understand a bigger picture is at play. This is why I built up to that, so that you can understand there is not just what is playing out in your physical reality, right? But there is a bigger picture, a higher vibrational frequency, or you could say a spiritual picture being played out as you live your life, as we all live our lives, right? Collectively. So, I said I liken it to when you're born on the planet, is that when you do so, your spirit makes the choice to incarnate, right? And in doing so, makes the choice, the willing choice to go through the veil and forget all of your past lifetimes and essentially all that it knows of its higher self, of its spiritual aspects, and incarnate down into physicality or linearity, 3D, 4D existence, right? So, essentially, the thing has happened with the highly melanated. Why do as a soul make that descent to the lower dimensions to experience reality? It's so that you spiritually grow and mature to a certain level, and you need certain lessons, certain experiences in order for you to achieve that. The same thing is true of the awakening highly melanated on this today. We are in the process of attaining our higher selves. We are in the process of becoming our best selves. That took a process. That took experiences, right? That took all of the pain and hardship and all the things that we had to suffer through in order to make it to this point, to truly be our best selves. our higher selves, our evolved versions of ourselves. That point. We're at the point where the Mayan calendars we're alluding to, right? The Mayan calendars ended not at the destruction of this planet. The Mayan calendars ended with the discontinuance of the old paradigm on the planet, the old way that the planet used to work, right? And coinciding with that is the opportunity for the highly melanated to achieve 100% DNA efficacy, to achieve 100% alliance with your higher self, to achieve what many of us term as ascension, spiritual ascension, consciousness ascension, into a higher consciousness that encompasses higher versions of reality, the spirit world included. This is what we're talking about. So, yeah, we went through a lot, and though we may not have known it at the time on a conscious level or understood on a conscious level what we were walking ourselves into, our higher selves most certainly understood that we were walking ourselves into a crucible, right? A crucible through all of these experiences, even the pain and the suffering, right? In some instances, and for certain lessons, especially the pain and the suffering we went through to get to this point, right? The point where we can be our higher selves. So to answer the question is, how did we ever become subjugated if we were as much as we think we were? So we allowed it at our level, and not play in the physical level, sending us through a crucible of experiences that would spiritually mature us to this point. So whereas it may initially be counterintuitive and you may initially think, well, that doesn't make sense, we wouldn't have volunteered for ourselves to go through that. Yes, we would have, because we knew it required this crucible of experiences. And I'm selecting that word purposefully. That this crucible of experiences is what was required for us to be forged into our best selves. The totality of our experience. That's why we've got to not stop in our efforts to uncover what was hidden, because we need all of that. We need all of that, coupled with all that we know and are uncovering now. The totality of our experience is what we deserve to draw from, right? So we have to continue understanding the bigger picture, right? And how it has played out in our lives on this planet. Now, you can also encompass into that some variables or wild cards when you start to talk about the genetic manipulation programs that have been carried out on the planet, and those who was conspiracy theory. What are you talking about? He done went off the deep end real quick. Do the research, folks. It's out there. There's a reason why they've been chasing down the missing link for I don't know how long, and now scientists are saying, well, yeah, there's been some interfering with our evolution. Yep, there has been. Along the way, there's been some interference. Because we have taken steps in evolution that do not at all come close to following the natural pathology of evolution in terms of the time spans required. Don't take my word for it. Do the research on your own, please. That way you know for yourself. And that's the best way to know. And that's just part of it. There's also, if you start to uncover other genetic programs back in and on the continent we commonly refer to as Africa, right? The first melanated beings on the planet, the first humans on the planet that were highly melanated and that were evolved in some ways that we are regressed back from, right? They were far more in tune with the planet, literally interactive with the weather, literally interactive with nature. They were telepathic, right? Had the use of telepathy and telekinesis, right? And these are the folks that we're talking about that were formidable to some other interests, we'll say, some other interested parties who had plans on usurping the planet and moving into systems of power. Maybe the systems of power that we're seeing held on to so tightly today, right? Folks, check my videos and do the research for yourself. I've talked about how those in secret societies often allude to, if you check into their doctrine and their literature, they allude to their hidden masters, right? Okay, well, who are they referring to? Hidden, what do they mean by hidden? Do they mean unseen? Unseen is not in operating on a 3D plane, right? Okay, let's just break it down scientifically, folks. Don't be spooky with it. If we just attack these subjects as things to study instead of all of the, hype or it's a conspiracy theory or it's a cultic talk or whatever, don't put any hype into it. Just break it down for what it is. Find out, is there any veracity to it or not? What are the facts involved? What are the sciences involved? And deal with it that way. And when you do that pathologically, it's really not that difficult to break all these things down. And you see where, okay, there was, in fact, higher advanced versions of humanity on this planet previously, right? All quote prehistoric man does not equal primitive man like we thought. That's how we've gotten very used to thinking. We think that the more you go back in time, the more basic, the more unevolved, the more primitive you'll find man to be, when the archaeological record doesn't suggest that at all. The archaeological record suggests that there indeed have been very, and in fact, more advanced versions of humanity on this planet previously. And many of them have been the highly melanated or quote unquote black people who have been into worldwide movement, peace, love, respect, who have been completely unaware of their origins, right? And this is what has sort of glossed over how all this could potentially even happen, is the wall of ignorance of not understanding what and when happened or how, right? So if we a little bit more what we were, and here's another thing to take into consideration. When I say that they were advanced in many ways, we have to, there's something that we get completely misconstrued, that we have allowed the socially economic elite to ingrain into our minds, which is that advancement means advanced capabilities for dominating others. Huh? That's what we start thinking about. We start thinking about expanding. We're dominant. Well, if they were so big and bad, so advanced, how could they possibly be, usurped or subjugated in any way? If you're advanced, you're not advancing yourself. That is, if you're advanced on a higher vibrational frequency, if you are existing in a way that is harmonic with the world and the other inhabitants on the world, why in the world would you advance in warfare? Why would you advance in ways of killing one another at all? Why would you advance in ways of deceit even? You wouldn't. You're more focusing on more positive developmental ways of existing, right? You're developing new sciences, not so that you can use them as weapons, but so that you can use them in some beneficent, right? That's the kind of culture we were talking about. That's the kind of people we were talking about. So when you have those who are interested in lower vibrational frequency aspirations of dominance, etc., right? Then you're talking about individuals who are very well versed in all the ways of war, the arts of war, right? Deception being among the biggest. So sure, I could see there being that sort of disparity. And I don't consider that to be that they were naive. I consider that to be that they were advanced. I consider it to be naive to think that lower vibrational frequency modes of behavior are more advanced. Got that backwards a little bit. War is not an evolved expression. War is a savage expression. It is a lower vibrational frequency expression. It is quite simply violence, right? Committed against other inhabitants of the planet, other people in the planet. And rather than aspiring towards warlike tendencies, we're talking about people who aspire toward peace and beneficent ways of coexisting, not only with other animals and beings on the planet, with other humans, with themselves, right? So yeah, I could quite easily see a huge difference in those folks and the other folks that they may have encountered having aspirations of domination, right? And maybe some of those folks were the hidden masters, right? That the secret society folks are alluding to. Hi. But either way it goes, we have to realize what is the true goal? What is true ascension? Is it domination or is it peace, love, respect? What's really civilized, right? Having greater weapons of war or having greater means of advancing civilization truly, right? Focus on what civilization really is, folks. What is it really to be civilized? And then we can see exactly what did happen. So there's a little complexity to it in that it's two-part, what we allowed and what those we encountered were far more versed in, right? Which is deceit and trickery. And that is not something that, in fact, we excelled in and never want to excel in, because that's not going in the right direction. That's not evolving, that's devolving. So let's not get confused with that. Let's not hold on to warlike tendencies and behavior, lower vibrational frequency behavior, tricking ourselves into believing that that's more advanced simply because you have an advanced technology attached to it, right? Or what we perceive to be an advanced technology. So there is a process that's involved that we essentially volunteered for, the same way we essentially volunteered for being incarnated on this planet in the first place, for spiritual maturation leading to our ascension. And on a collective level, that is what the melanated folks have experienced on this planet, right? They have experienced the crucible that was necessary for their spiritual maturation to foster the ascension that was in fact the true goal in the first place. And now it is at hand. And now it is at hand. The same way the Mayan calendars predicted, right? Now that new paradigm is at hand. So I guess that we're all on the right track, right? All of you are helping me to continue to build the worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq, I love you all. Please continue to like, share, subscribe. Check me out. Follow me on Twitter now. And please check out the community section on the channel. Very important and powerful things there. And just continue to tell everybody you know, tell folks you don't know, and let's all build the worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq, I'm out.